Hey, so today I wanted to continue showing some Qt features. In the last video I showed a little bit about how to get started, how to set it up, and the fact that you can run Qt in just a standalone Python. I'm gonna be using Maya, however, mostly because all of this stuff is made in Qt, and I think it would be interesting to show you like some of these components that Maya has and how we could potentially recreate them. So today is mainly going to be focused on creating widgets and layouts. And so widgets are the visible components that you can interact with. Like this is a button that you can click on, that is a widget. And layouts deal more with arranging these widgets together. So these are two widgets that are vertically arranged. These two are horizontally arranged. And then this layout with two horizontally arranged widgets is again like a part of these three widgets. Like if we take a quick screenshot into Paint here, actually draw on top of this real quick so you could see um, there's a layout containing all of this. There's a layout that's a horizontal layout, and then in there's like a widget for this camera. There's a widget for this text field. Then there's another layout that has two smaller widgets inside. So that's a vertical layout with two little icons in there. And then we have another vertical layout with two widgets in there. And finally, there's another horizontal layout with two more widgets in there. See if I can kind of highlight that. So we can, and you build it from like this from the top to the bottom. So you can generate all your widgets, and then you want to put them together into this structure so that it's laid out exactly how you want it. So yeah, why not actually go and try and make something that looks like this? I think that could be very fun exercise. So the first thing we need to do again is to import the Qt libraries. Qt core import star from pysite2.qt GUI import star, and from widgets. Mentioned before that older Maya will have PySite or even PyQt4, and those two will not have the Qt widgets module. When you're doing standalone, you could install PySite, PySite2, PyQt4, PyQt5. There's PySite 6 nowadays, so there's plenty of options out there. But the import will always look like this. Just some of them don't have the widgets because then the widgets are part of the GUI module. So the same features are there, it's just split up differently. All right, the next thing we want to make is let's create a main window. That's something we can show. If you're doing standalone, you need to create a Q application. So if you're Maya, don't do this. And then execute it at the end. So this is the last line and this is the first line of your code. That will just make everything just function in standalone. And in Maya, you generally want to set a parent for the Q main window. I don't have the function on hand right now. It's kind of complicated, but I showed last time, I showed a snippet that you could just copy paste and use to say the main window is a child of the Maya main window, and then that would be a function that looks a bit like this. But I don't have that function right now, so we're just gonna have a separate main window. And the reason to parent it to the Maya window is so that when it shows up, it's not like a separate item on the taskbar, and it's also not like you can't hide it behind Maya. So like the script editor, if I click on Maya, script editor stays in front, but my main window has just been moved to be behind Maya because it's not a child of the Maya window. So that's something that you could improve by setting the parent correctly. But for now, I think what we can do is just move this to the side, and just so I can reach this window. So what's kind of cool about Qt windows is that they're sort of live. So this variable I have here, this main, is representing this window. So if I don't create a new window, I can still interact with the window that I have here. So I can, in fact, like hide it and show it, and that's still gonna be the same exact window instance. And what I like about that is that I can start building my window line by line in here and see it appear here. And if I mess up, I just run all of my code and then I have a clean slate. But while working, it's kind of nice because you don't have to, you know, get this window and move it over time and again, because every time you hide and show it, it's going to reset the size. And if you recreate it, it might reset the position. So it's kind of nice to just work in this live living window. So the next thing a main window has is a central widget, which is this area isn't actually a widget yet. So we first need to create a widget that we can start working on top of. So that's just going to be a Q widget. And then main.set central widget is this center. You can run these two lines. And then now we have our main widget, and that can actually start getting a layout. So a main window cannot have a layout, but a widget can. So the next thing I would want to do is make this horizontal layout. So I can make my horizontal box. I guess it's going to be 1 because there will be more. QH box layout. So this is the horizontal box layout. And with box layout means they just they treat every widget as like a rectangle and they snap them together. So they lay out boxes in a row. So we can also make a vertical one, which is just replace the H with a V. And we have the QV box layout for vertical widgets like this. The center can get the layout. You use set layout and give it the horizontal box layout. So now, still not seeing anything, but we built a stack of a window, a widget, and a layout. Now the layout can receive children that will be laid out automatically. So I can create a label of camera, for example, if I'm going to make exactly the thing that we're looking at. And then I can say horizontal layout dot add widget, and then I add the label. And now we can see something appear. And we can add a second widget, which will be a line edit. And well, this says perf shape, so let's just grab that as well for the fun of it. This one is not editable, you can only select it. This one you can edit. Not 100% sure. Actually named this incorrectly. So now I'm gonna rerun because yeah, I made a mistake and I can only do this, but then I get 2 of them. Just recreate the whole thing. This line edit, I think it has like a set enabled false or set editable. No, it doesn't look like it. I need to look that up. Yeah, I just Google QLine edit and then pull up the documentation page. So this is the C++ documentation. It's not the PySite Python documentation. They are slightly different. I use C++ occasionally and I just got used to this documentation. I like it a little bit more than this one. It's equally overwhelming though. One cool thing about the C++ documentation is that it has this button, list of all members, including inherited members. So in the Python documentation, we can very clearly see that the line edit is based off the widget and object and paint device. So all the functionality that lives in these documentation pages is also present in the line edit. We just don't see it in this page. And then this button actually doesn't show that nice graph, but it does have a button that combines the pages together in one long list. We have, I guess it wasn't editable, so maybe it's enable Yeah, there we go. Is enabled. And I guess there's a set enabled somewhere. Ah, there we go. So this is what I want. And do set enabled false. Nope, that's not it. I forgot how to do this. There's a way. I'll follow up on that sometime in a different video about the line editor properly. For now, let's just turn it back on so we can edit and select the text. Because yeah, what you want, the ideal scenario is that you can select it but don't change it. Because yeah, I love copy paste. It's very useful. And I think it's actually a pity that these labels are not selectable. Sometimes when you're programming and there's like a complicated name for something, you might just want to select this, copy paste it into your code, and then you have the exact same name. Especially if you have like if you're slightly dyslexic or something, then it's even worse. So it can be very helpful to have selectable text everywhere in your UI, which yeah, if you're thinking about user friendliness, that's definitely a feature that you want. Let's continue adding those widgets though. We have this, now we get to a vertical layout with two little icons. I don't have pictures, so I'm just going to use buttons for now. So we have vertical box. And one cool thing about layouts is you can add widgets, but you can also add layouts to them. So I can add the vertical layout directly to the horizontal layout. I don't have to do this whole setup again where I first make a widget and then make a layout and combine them together and then add the widget. I can just create a layout, add the layout. A little bit shorter. So then we can add a Q push button. I'm just gonna use some beautiful ASCII art. Oh, got to run this code. We have a left arrow, can copy paste that. That's a right arrow. This is a left arrow. There we go. And then let's add this final column as well. So that's a vertical box again. And that's two buttons added to that vertical box again. Focus and presets. And then I can add a horizontal box again. So let's find that line. Horizontal box 2. Then we add that layout to the vertical box in this case. So vertical box 2 gets horizontal box 2 added to it. And then, oh, didn't run this yet. Let's keep going. And then horizontal box 2 has two more buttons in there for show and hide. So add widget, Q push button. I don't think there's a Q button. It's just called Q push button. Don't know why, but it's just the normal button that you want to use for everything. All your button related needs. So now it looks the same if we make it really small. But there's all this stretching going on. There's all this space that gets filled up. And of course, here's the space is just not there. But even in an emptier view, if there is such a thing, like there's still some space going on here that is controlled. Like you can choose where the space should be. And you can do that by adding a stretch to a layout. So if I have that vertical box, I can say add stretch. And then I'm just adding a stretch of 1, which means you can do this multiple times. So if I have stretch above and stretch below, I could add 1 here and 1 here, and then they each take, you know, 1 out of the 2 stretches. So the total stretch is 2 because I've added 1 and 1, and then they each take 50% of the responsibility. If I say add stretch 1 here and add stretch 2 here, the total stretches are 3, but then this one takes a third of the responsibility, and this one will take 2/3 of the responsibility. But first I'll just add this at the end so you can see that pushes everything up. Now this is where the stretch happens. But for the fun of it, I'll show you how you can change the stretch here by adding one beforehand, before adding the widgets. and then one after adding the widget. So they'll be 50-50. But if I make this 3, then it will be like 25, 45, or 75. So we run all of that and make this really tall. You can see these guys are kind of floating, and the remaining space is being divided into 1, 2, 3, and 4 portions, and then 1 portion went here and 3 portions went here. That is kind of the gist of how you build widgets. It can get kind of complicated kind of fast because you have so many lines of code to build this together, and you have to kind of find a flow that you like. Because what I like to do is I create it and then I add it into the window, and then I create the label and I add it into the layout that has already been added. So I try to make something, set properties on it, and then be done with my business as fast as I can. So I don't have to think about this widget after this group of code. So if you think about it as, so you can really indent stuff in Python like this, but if you think about sections where you say build the window, build the central widget. After this, we're not really thinking about the central widget anymore. We have to touch it once to add the layout. We can build the central layout like that. This is kind of a hierarchy of things, right? So as we get to the label, and now we're really done with the label and we're back inside of the central layout, and the next item is going to be build the line edit. It's going to be like at the same level. These guys are living next to each other in the same level of the layout structure of the hierarchy of widgets and layouts. And if you think about it like that, I personally think it makes sense to try and complete a widget before moving on to the next one. So if indeed I want to say, this line edit has to be disabled, I will do that first. Like make the line edit, set all the settings, add it to the window, be done with the line edit. And now we go a level deeper where we add a button or two, and now we go back up one level. Now we're done with the vertical layout. So it's been created, it's been added, all its widgets have been created and added to that layout. And now that layout has been completed and we can move on to the next thing. That's how I prefer to think about building. It's like it's a hierarchy and stuff doesn't really cross-pollinate or talk to each other too much or as much as possible. Then after you build the whole layout, that's when you get to actually build the interactivity, which is something I'll talk about in the next session. Because of course none of this is actually doing anything yet, but we'll make a little example widget which will be able to do stuff. And I separate that again from all of this. So first I build the window as it needs to look, and then I build the functionality, and then I connect those dots together. There's the code part, there's the visual part, and then there's the glue that holds them together, and I try to keep them in separate parts of the code, so it's very easy to isolate what's going on, and it's easy to change the layout without making mistakes or breaking the glue that's holding the layout together with the functionality. Because yeah, if you're moving stuff around here, you don't want a bunch of other important code intermixed with it. So let's just finish up these comments just to make it nice. So this is another layer. And here's a button, here's a button, here's a deeper button. All right, I think with these comments it actually looks a lot less scary because we have a sense of the structure and how things are happening. Though I usually don't add comments like this because this doesn't tell us much. It's not very informative. The indentations are nice, they show us the structure, but as soon as you start moving stuff around, this can you can make mistakes in these. Like you will forget to update it, or you'll forget the don't do the indentation properly. So I think it can be a distraction because you will often see invalid comments and then get misled while trying to fix an issue because you're trusting the comments too much. Um, yeah, I've tried a lot of things, including this, but I don't actually do it in my day-to-day production code. If anything, I try to wrap stuff up into functions more or into separate widgets more, which is a little bit more of an advanced use case. But you could, of course, have a function that builds part of this, and then have the main window call call that function so that you build parts and then put them together, so that this just looks more organized and more isolated into groups of actions instead of one big swath of code. But at the end of the day, this is how you build it, and I think you have to just give it a go. Try and rearrange some stuff. Try and make some stuff swap places. Maybe you can think about this problem right here. What if we took the horizontal layout that's now at the top of the central widget and put that in another vertical layout and then add a stretch at the bottom so everything floats to the top? That's an exercise I'm going to leave to you. If you're interested, I definitely recommend you play around with this. Maybe check out the Qt website or the previous video to see what other widgets exist and try and replace some of these things, or make another thing that you see in Maya or in another tool that you use, an interface that you want to recreate, and see if you can get some of these things done with the layouts. Because one thing you probably won't see done is these foldable things and these tabs. They are different widgets that yeah, require more explanation and expertise. So I'm just gonna hold off on them for now. But until then, I hope this yeah, this was worth something, and I'll go on in the next session to actually make this a functional UI so we can really build a software, a tool that does something. Thank you for watching.